Rolling string.
Watch Talk Heathen live Sundays at 1 p.m. Central. Visit tiny.cc/YTTH and call into the show at 512-991-9242 or connect to the show online at tiny.cc/callth.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another fantastic episode of Truth Wanted. I am your host, Objectively Dan, and this is the live call-in show that happens every single week, Fridays at 7 p.m. Central Time, where we want to talk to you about what you believe and why. And, of course, every week I always have a special guest. This week is no different. Not really a guest, per se, just another host of the show joining us. It's MD Aware, folks. MD, welcome back.
Thank you very much. Long time no see, right, Dan?
Yeah, long time no see. We just had a great 4-person episode last week. So if you missed that, you definitely need to check it out. I'm filling in for Erin today. Erin was supposed to host, but she is sick. So I think she would appreciate your thoughts and prayers on that one. She's the kind of person that would, I think. So I think she's doing better now, though. Just, her raspy voice doesn't make for great podcasting / talk show, call-in show material, so we're let it rest on that one. But hey, MD, what's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good. Can't complain. I've been excited for this episode. Yes. Whether it's with Aaron or with Dan, I'm happy either way.
Well, the topic of interest that we've decided to talk about is an interesting one to me as well. So I'm glad I got to weigh in on it, and I got to weigh in on some more stuff too, because originally we were just going to talk about Myers-Briggs, but I also want to talk about Enneagram, so we'll get to that too in a minute here. But let's start off with Myers-Briggs. MD, what is the Myers-Briggs test?
Sure. So probably most people may have heard of the Myers-Briggs. It's a personality test, like the ones you might have done in like a magazine when you were in high school, or like on what's that website where everyone does those like little pointless tests? It's like Facebook. Oh, sure, Facebook, whatever. But it's like much more corporate and like claims to be psychologically based, right? Based in like actual science,
right?
And so a lot of like corporations will get you to do this Myers-Briggs personality test when you go through their hiring process. And what it claims to do is break people up into like 16 categories. So you'd be like one of these 16 categories, and it describes your personality ostensibly along 4 axes. And the 4 categories, or the 4 axes that they have, are like whether you're an introvert or an extrovert, whether you do like sensing or intuition, so like sort of the way you interact with the world, you're thinking versus feeling, and then you're judging versus perceiving. So those are the four like spectra that they use, the 4 categories, and your combination of those factors puts you into a personality type according to the Myers-Briggs.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Is it scientifically based? MD Aware? Like people claim it to be.
So every study that has looked at this has shown that it is not scientifically based. I find, that is one thing. And psychologists and people who study personality have looked at the test and found issues with 2 major things, which are the most important things when we're talking about a test like this. So they have problems with its validity, and validity is a measure of how well a test measures what you think it's measuring, right? So if I have a ruler and I want to, and its job is to measure the length of something, if I put it up against some standard ruler and the markings don't match up, then it has poor validity. So Myers-Briggs does really poorly on that metric, but it also does poorly on the other metric, which is reliability, which is how repeatable it is. So with something like personality, you would expect a personality is sort of by definition a stable thing. And if you do the test on different days, you'll get the same personality type, the same result. But that's also an issue for the Myers-Briggs. So it also fails there. But I think it's maybe even more interesting if you dig into the history of it. And the podcast Science Diction did a really good 3-part series on the Myers-Briggs and the history of the Myers-Briggs, and how basically there was 2 people who invented it. It was like a mother and her daughter. Mm-hmm. And the mother was basically obsessed with Carl Jung and just based all of her ideas on his ideas. And she basically just made it up whole cloth based on her like subjective interactions with the people around her.
Yeah.
And what she observed in her kids and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just sort of got picked up as things go. But it really, to me, is basically a pop psychology horoscope. That's the way I see these, like this personality test, but a lot of personality tests as well.
Now,
you've had some experience with it, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, before we move on,
yeah,
everybody in the comments who's watching this video, please pause. And I want you guys to guess what mine is and what MD Aware is. And I would love to see that data looks like. And while we're doing it too, if you know about it, do our Enneagrams too. I want to see that if you know, but if you don't know about it, I'll talk about it in a second. But please pause the video right now and do that so I can read the comments later. That would be great. People in the live chat, go ahead, give your guesses because we'll do it in a sec. Yeah. So my first knowledge, because like I always knew about it, I had to take it in high school, right? Mm-hmm. And it's one of those things where your Enneagram
class
type
or something, right?
Yeah. Well, like they want you to like figure out what career path is best for you based on this test, and I've done job applications where I've had to take a test that's either based off Enneagram or very similar. You know, it takes those kind of same principles.
Based off Enneagram or Myers-Briggs?
Based off, sorry, I said Enneagram. I meant Myers-Briggs, right. Based off Myers-Briggs. And it's the same thing, right? They want to figure out how you're going to fit into the culture of that company. And it's kind of sus, right? If we're saying that this is not based on a legitimate science, which, and to be fair, right, the original observations that were made by the woman, like that test is different from what they use now, like for Myers-Briggs, right? Like there's a lot more questions and there's a lot more people that have put input into it. But those same problems that you're talking about, just like, you know, we all really want to have objective measurements on people and put people into boxes, but like it just doesn't do enough to make those categories fit, in my opinion. I mean, that seems to be the problem, right? Yeah. And along with just like the predictors, it would be interesting if people who could look at that data could like test and see, oh, you are this person. But the problem is the questionnaire, it kind of proves itself in a way, right? Like you have to, if you answer these things, you are this. Like there's no control that you can base on for that. So it doesn't. Yeah.
It basically, you answer some questions and it's like, you tell the test, like, I sometimes feel anxious. I like being a leader, and it feeds back to you. You really like being a leader. You're sometimes anxious, and you're like, great, I just told you that.
Exactly.
And so if you look at what the Myers-Briggs Institute says their test is good for, they've backed off on most of their claims. So they no longer recommend that people use it to decide who to hire, and they don't use it necessarily to predict what people will interact well with what people. And so they've backed off to the point where you have to ask yourself, well, what does it even mean then? What good is it if it's not predictive for something? How do you use it? And a lot of corporations will just use it, outside of what the Myers-Briggs Institute says it should be used for. And I think what they say it should be used for is basically just, reflection, essentially. Yeah,
and I think that's valuable. Don't get me wrong. Like, I think answering.
I don't know if you need to pay like however much it costs.
No. And take a free test, absolutely, right?
Well, or just think about yourself and your interactions.
Sure. Some people aren't very good at self-reflection, though. I think that having a test to say, hey, are you anxious? Just asking that, maybe would tell you, oh, you're anxious sometimes. Like some people need that. I feel like.
Yeah.
Maybe it doesn't
it's
have to be in
fun
a clinical
sometimes.
settings. Yeah, I don't think you have to treat it like a diagnosis. Like, oh,
Yeah.
you've been given, this is your lot in life where you have to follow the prescriptions based on what gurus have to say about it. I don't think that's true, but I don't know. Like, and maybe I'm biased because I actually kind of like Enneagram, and we'll talk about that in a second too.
Okay.
But like Myers-Briggs has also been interesting anecdotally for me. Like, for example, my current partner is supposedly my most ideal type, and we get along great. So it's like, there it is. And earlier, MD, I guessed what your type was right off the bat, and that's a 1 in 16 chance.
How did you do it? How did you do it? What was your
I
method?
did it because I know you enough, so I know that you're kind of introverted. So the eye's kind of there, and you just kind of process of elimination. I think but like I think you can maybe in that sense there's some predictability, but it's still kind of.
But isn't that just again like summarizing the things that you already knew about me?
Yeah. But I guess like if you don't know that about yourself, I don't know. Like if you're 10 years old and you're figuring yourself, well, I don't know. Is it useful if you're 10?
But modern understandings of personality is that they're shifting while you're developing, but your personality settles in during your adulthoods, right? So so really, you would expect a good personality test to be essentially useless during like childhood and adolescence, and then be useless in a different way because it's always the same throughout your entire adult life, right?
Yeah, it'll never be a Minority Report situation, right? Where we just figure out, oh, well, based on this personality type, we got to put you in jail like right now. Like,
yeah, exactly.
I don't think any test will ever be capable of that. But I don't know. I think what does bother me is what you did talk about, which is paying money to figure out yourself when you don't need to do that. Like that stuff's kind of extra. I think taking a test is fun. Outside of that, I don't recommend any of that. If you're getting paid to get people into the school of thought, I think it can kind of make you have misunderstandings of how science works, probably. And at least how.
But, I mean, you also, to me, I also think about like, well, what's the purpose of this, and what is it actually doing? Is it dividing us more? Is it causing people to not get job offers because they scored something on this personality test? So I think that there's a lot of unintended consequences of things like the Myers-Briggs, where people think they're gleaning something useful and meaningful about a person, when really the actions based on those faulty conclusions are going to be harmful.
Yeah, you raise a good point. In my head, it's like, here's astrology, and here's Myers-Briggs. It's like slightly above. And the reason why I put it slightly above is because astrology, like you're just born, and whatever you're born on, that's it. That's your whole thing. That doesn't make any sense to me. At least you're asking some questions, and you're getting some, even if it's stuff you already know about yourself, there's some information beyond just the alignment of the stars that's determining who you are. So I can resonate with that, I guess, on some level. But I agree. The whole industry is kind of whack. Even though personality typing systems have been in a resurgence, astrology, of course, is having a renewal. But along with astrology, MD, is also the Enneagram. The Enneagram is coming back in full force, and I want to talk to you about the Enneagram. Now, you didn't know about the Enneagram.
No,
you never heard of it.
That's right. So I'm eager to learn.
I know about the Enneagram because at one point in my life, MD, I was a progressive Christian, and progressive Christians are having a moment with Enneagram. I feel like 9 out of 10, if you ask a progressive Christian what their Enneagram type is, they're going to be super excited to tell you because they already know. I feel like it's a thing. So like, what is Enneagram? The history of it is really, really murky. It's very, very murky, and different people will claim different things. The claim is that it has its roots in Jewish mysticism, like Jewish Kabbalism, and this is something that ostensibly has Judeo-Christian origins, specifically Jewish origins, and that's why you see it in so many Christian circles, because it's of God in some way, right? And
at least they're doing some sort of like appeal to antiquity as well, right?
Right, exactly. So there's some ancient wisdom going on here, right? But there is no evidence, like hard evidence, of the Enneagram existing before the year like 1950. Like there's a bunch of people that have talked about it, and some people that have wrote books about it and had some theories But it's very vague and it's very weird. There is not a clear, definite history on the origin of this stuff. So that should already be suspect. But you know what? Maybe the origin doesn't matter. Maybe it's the methodology, right? So what is the methodology of Enneagram? Well,
what is the methodology?
It bases your personality on to 9 numbers. Okay. And each of these numbers, they kind of have a shape for it. It looks like a pentagram, but it's not, because it's little lines that connect on a circle to each of these numbers. And what those numbers mean is you have different points on that axis that tell you something about yourself. So 1 is the reformer or the perfectionist. 2 is the helper or giver. I guess I'll go through all of them. 3 is the achiever or performer. 4 is the individualist or romantic. 5, investigator or observer. 6 is the loyalist or loyal skeptic. 7 is the enthusiast. 8 is the challenger or protector. And 9 is the peacemaker or mediator. Okay, so basically, just like Myers-Briggs, you are this type and you can't change it. Like, this is you your whole life. Okay, and there's some systems that allow for wings. So you can be a 5 with a 6 wing, or a 7 with a 6 wing. It's whatever number's right next to you, because you can have a little bit of both of those traits. So that already kind of muddles it down, but then it gets even murkier. Okay, because that's your base number. In times of stress, you actually turn out to be a different number. So
Interesting.
If you're a 9 and you get stressed, you represent traits of a 6. But if you're actually really secure in yourself, you represent traits of a 3. So really, you kind of are just all over the place with these numbers.
And what do they? What do, like, I don't know? What do they think that you can do with these results?
The idea is a kind of like Myers-Briggs. It kind of tells you about yourself, and it tells you what your limitations are and your strengths are, and maybe also what you would be good at in your career, and what is going to be best for your life outcome. In a Christian sense, it may be what God's plan is for you. What God has made you to be.
Oh, interesting.
Like different, just like Myers-Briggs. There's an Enneagram Institute. There's organizations that have taken this to use it in a professional context and have tried to study celebrities, have tried to study people in history and figure out what theirs would be so they can kind of match it up to their charts.
Wow, that's interesting too.
Yeah, it's a whole thing.
Because I just took the Enneagram after you mentioned it today, and it was a lot of like, how do you feel about this yourself? I can't imagine how they would get someone who's dead to do the test.
Basically, it's just like a decision-making software system, right? You have to rank it. You rank your options from 1 to 5. So they're making the assumption of what those people would rank. Is basically what they're doing.
Seems pretty spurious to me.
Seems legit to me. I don't know. That's just science. Making guesses of what other people would put on a survey. That's just, come on. Doesn't get more scientific than that. But it is a fascinating institution, and it fascinates me just because there is just a subculture of which I was a part of, that being kind of progressive Christian circles that are just really all over this thing. Like, it has been popping off. Like, if you think astrology is popular, Enneagram is just as popular in those circles. It
really?
is. It's Christian astrology. Absolutely. Oh yeah. So now I think, MD, we should say what our personalities were. Okay. So mine is ENFP. I'm an ENFP according to Myers-Briggs. Extroverted, intuitive, feeling perceptive. And Enneagram, I'm a 4. I'm a 4 with a 5 wing. So I'm an individualist, but I also got that 5 wing. So that specific typing is called the Bohemian, which is great.
Interesting.
I love that name for it. Yeah. So I think those both make sense for me, but again, it has to make sense for me, right? Because
you gave you the answer.
I gave him the answers for it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So what are your types, MD?
So my Myers-Briggs is INTJ, which is according to theirs is the architect personality.
Okay.
And they say that I'm very detail oriented and I'm a tactician, whatever that means.
Okay.
And then my Enneagram number is an 8, which is a protector. And in their description, it says that I like debating. So they got that right.
There you go. I was surprised that you got the 8. I would have thought you would have gotten the 1, which is the
What's
perfectionist.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
the perfectionist.
Okay.
And that was my guess for you. But 4 kind of works for me. You know, I noticed it's all the famous artists that have troubled lives. It's Amy Winehouse and Kurt Cobain are supposedly all 4s and stuff. It's like, oh, okay. Gotta make sure my mental health is good. Yeah, like that's what that tells me. But anyway, yeah. So personality typing systems. What do you guys think? I want to know. Call us and tell us: are we full of it? Maybe we're interpreting these results wrong, and we don't know what we're talking about. And you're an expert, or
maybe you have a even better personality test that you know.
Yeah,
that we're not aware of.
Yeah, but don't make us take it on the air, especially if it's like 100-question test, because that's not cool for listeners. But a comment section, maybe. You know, I'm interested in reading that. So the number to that is 512-991-9242, or you can call in tiny.cc/calltw on your computer or other electronic device, and we would love to talk to you. We have some open lines, so we definitely want to get to you. And we can get to a call here, but before we do that, MD, I think we should thank our patron of the week. What do you think?
Absolutely.
Okay, so every single week, folks, we always give a shout out to one patron that donates on patreon.com/truthwanted. We like to thank all of our patrons, but we want to give a special shout out to at least one patron a week. And this week's patron is Zachary Wilkes. Thank you so much, Zachary Wilkes, for donating. And once again, thank you to everybody that helps donate to Truth Wanted. Truth Wanted is a product of the Atheist Community of Austin, which is a 501c3 organization. It is a nonprofit, and all the money that goes to Truth Wanted, I don't get that money. MD doesn't get that money. It all goes towards the show and making all the stuff happen. So thank you guys so much for donating. You guys rock. And with that out of the way, MD, you ready to take some calls?
Let's do it.
Okay, let's do it. We're talking to Tymm. Tymm, I haven't heard from Tymm in a long time. Tymm from Washington State is calling in. Tymm, how are you doing?
Good, Dan. How are you? MD,
I'm
nice
doing...
to meet you. I don't think I've talked with you.
Yeah,
no,
Tymm is.
It's good to meet you.
Tymm is a longtime caller, and yeah, I guess you haven't called in when MD's been on. So good for that. Good stuff. What is going on, Tymm?
No, not a whole lot. I've been working and I work until 6 o'clock. So Fridays, I work Monday through Friday until 6 o'clock. So I've been missing the show. I just had not been feeling well the last couple of days, so I called in today. So I got to call in to you.
Well, great. Excellent choice.
I really wanted to talk about what's going on in Florida with the Don't Say Gay bill. It really, it's something that has been weighing heavy on my mind, and I am so, I know I probably shouldn't say this, but fucking frustrated with what's going on in our nation with this closed-minded bullshit that's happening. And I'm scared about these kids. I remember being in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, third grade, crushing on all these boys, including Johnny Whitaker and Greg Brady and a few other television personalities, and not having anybody to talk to. And knowing that these kids in Florida are not going to be able to trust their counselors, not going to be able to trust their teachers, with what they're feeling. Oh my God, sorry. I didn't mean to get emotional. It frustrates me because that type of legislation only leads to the possibility of suicide. The ultimate end is these kids are going to feel so alone, and they're going to feel so lost that is going to be how they're going to be able to cope with it. And it bothers me that we have to have this closed-minded ultra right wing, I guess legislation, for lack of a better word, to destroy our kids. That's what it really is it's destroying our kids.
I agree with you, Tim. It's terrible legislation, just through and through. It's terrible legislation. It doesn't help anybody. It only hurts, right? We're just now as a society, and I want to let MD talk because I've been talking for a while, but we're just now.
I just want to get filled in because I'm a sheltered Canadian, so I don't know what's going on in Florida.
Here's what's going on in Florida.
Yeah.
Okay. So there's a bill titled Parental Rights in Education, right? Because they always got to name it like exactly what the opposite. It always has to sound better than what it actually is, right?
Right.
I just pulled up the summary here just so I can show you. It states that lessons about sexual orientation are banned outright in kindergarten through 3rd grade, and it also prohibits lessons in other grades unless they are age appropriate and developmentally appropriate. What this means is, in practice, it means that any school that wants to be homophobic or wants to be transphobic doesn't want to deal with parents calling in and complaining about people learning about gender, learning about sexual orientations, means that they're not even going to teach it. They're just going to pretend like it doesn't exist and just pretend like only straight people exist and only cis people exist, which has never been true for pretty much ever. And just do what they want to do. Like Tim was saying, like this bill is preventing kids who are figuring out themselves, having to have a safe place to talk about it. Right. I'm a straight cis guy. Okay. So I cannot relate to your experience, but everyone that's ever told me, like you, Tim, has said, yeah, I knew I was this way for a long time. I've known it since I was a little kid. And when I was a kid, I had crushes on girls in like 2nd grade. So, that's a thing that happens for kids. That you figure out there's attraction there. That stuff's going on. And instead of dealing with it like fucking adults, instead of telling your kid, hey, this is how the world works, and, this is how you can prepare yourself for it, Americans like to pretend like it doesn't exist. And as a result, you see the problems and the lack of knowledge we have on all issues related to sex, right? Like, we're talking about abortion? No, absolutely not. Can't do that. You can't have premarital sex. That's what people say. They talk about condoms? No, absolutely not. They wouldn't even go that far because they don't even want you to have sex in general. I mean, like, this goes across all 50 states, but particularly in the South, particularly in Florida, where you're going to see this kind of attitude happen. And it's terrible. Look, gay people exist, trans people exist. Either acknowledge it or live in delusion. I don't know what the other option is there, but like, you can't ignore it. Like, they're always going to be there in society. Mm-hmm. You might as well prepare kids to have a mature and focused conversation about it than do what they want to do, which is saying, oh, you should have your parents teach you about it. And Lord knows my parents did not teach me what was right about gay people and trans people. Okay. And my parents, by the way, both work in medicine, and they still told me very untrue things about gay and trans people because they went to church and they got their information from other people. And, it's not a reliable way of doing things. That's all. So there's a lot of things going on, MD, in Florida. And the other thing too, just to add on, just like with the abortion bills in Texas, right? This is proposed. This is right. Like inspiring other states to do the same thing. So there's another one going on in Indiana. There's another one that's happening in some other states. So people are trying to pass similar legislation because they're like, well, if Florida can do it, then we should try to do it here. And that's how all these things go. So anyway, it's not great. It sucks.
It seems so strange from my perspective, because it's so like, it's obviously untrue, right? Like, it's not evidence-based. Like, why would you create that sort of situation when like even the people? So what I'd be really interested in is knowing if the legislators think that this is going to like what they think the outcome is going to be, essentially. Honestly,
if they think that, that there's the LGBT agenda is like a real thing, and they think that it is a thing. We want them to have equal rights in society and exist as human beings. Like, yeah, that's the thing. But they see it as more nefarious. They literally think like this what they call gender ideology is turning kids gay or turning kids trans, when and
those are the same thing.
Exactly. Well, they're saying, well, they're legitimately, their criticism is, oh, they're saying that being gay or being trans is okay, and like that's like of course it's okay, but like they don't see it as okay. That's the problem, right? So yeah.
I don't know. I totally agree with you, Tim. Like, go ahead,
Tim.
What they're not seeing is that, like with me, when I was a kid, I mean, I was a kid back in the early 70s. I'll be 58 next Saturday. But when I was a kid in the early 70s, I wasn't told that it's okay for me to crush on Johnny Whitaker. I wasn't told that I was okay for wanting to kiss Joey, although I probably shouldn't kiss Joey because maybe he wouldn't want me to kiss him, but I was okay with wanting to, right?
Sure, the feelings, right?
Because
your feelings were not validated. Absolutely, yeah, and that's the problem with this bill, right? It's basically saying you can't. Ultimately saying you should have parents say it, but really it's to protect the religious right, and saying that they don't want a school to say that this is okay. That's really what it is. They don't want to live in that world. And that's sad because there's plenty of kids that are gay or trans that come from religious homes and are going to experience feelings of attraction or going to experience feelings of dysphoria. And they're not going to know how to handle that properly because their parents are going to say, no, this doesn't exist. That's the real tragedy of this. We're finally in a place in society where we can actually let kids grow up and live normal lives and be happy with their gender and be happy with their orientation. And this is preventing that. There's no reason for this bill to pass. Absolutely none. In my opinion.
And the other strange thing is, like, what a strange arbitrary line to draw, right? Like, we don't say it's similar to the evolution creation thing, right? Where like you can't teach this in schools. It's like, well, we don't say that you can't teach literally anything else, really.
Yeah.
And like, on what basis is this something different? I mean, that's the other strange thing, and it's partly cultural. I think it's really useful to approach, human sexuality in education from like a very medical, clinical perspective, because it takes all of the baggage away from it, I feel.
Sure. What
do you think, Tim?
The sad thing about this whole thing is that DeSantis signed it into law, so it is actually a law in Florida. But what I just saw a video of this today. There is a teacher who started a movement with other teachers where they are no longer doing anything having to do with gender. They want to have everyone refer to all of their students as they or them, to negate all gender. They are going with the moniker of MX rather than Mr. or Mrs. They are not talking about their spouses in any way, shape, or form other than my spouse. They are completely negating everything having to do with gender, including heterosexual gender. And I think that's kind of funny because it's kind of blowing that whole thing up in the face of Ron DeSantis and all of the right-wing GOPers, because what it is that now they're saying, okay, you don't want us to talk about gender? We won't talk about gender at all. We won't call them boys and girls. We'll call them children. We'll call them they or them when we're discussing them. And I found that fascinating. I think that's a great way to protest this law, but it still hurts me that these kids are now going to have to deal with this for 3 years. And the law actually says age appropriate in the future. Basically,
Exactly.
what they want to do is they don't want to they don't want anyone to mention gay or transgender. I have a friend who's got a transgender son. He was defined at birth as a female, but came out 2 years ago as a boy. He is now 14, I think. So he would be completely disregarded in Florida. Thankfully, he doesn't live in Florida, but he would be completely disregarded in Florida and his parents, and if they lived in Texas, his parents would be accused of child abuse.
Yes. Oh God, don't get me started on that, Tim. Jeez. I know.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
It's look, there's, this is just like, I imagine, I wasn't there when this happened, but I imagine there was a lot of people that were freaking out when sex ed first happened in school, like when they said, oh, we're going to teach this in school now, because people were like, oh, you're going to teach kids how to have sex. Oh, of course, people completely misunderstanding what that meant, having comprehensive sex education. And I feel like this is the exact same thing going on, because the narrative is like, oh, they're going to teach like third graders about gay sex and what happens when, this and that happens. And like, of course, that's not what's going to happen in the classroom realistically. Like what it is just the identification that, hey, there's people of other genders and there's people that like boys and girls and other things too. And like, that's pretty much all it is. It's as simple as it can get, but of course it's a denial of reality to say that these things aren't real and that we shouldn't acknowledge it. That's
the thing that I find so strange. It's like, it's not like they're not going to find out at some point that
right?
Like gay people exist, right?
I was a kid. I'm sorry, but I used gay as an insult for other kids because I grew up in a homophobic area and that was the thing. But like, I knew what being gay was like, but I didn't know
so
what it means.
That's my question.
Yeah.
Like, what are they trying to avoid with this bill? I just don't understand the impetus for the bill. Like it doesn't make sense to me.
Well, and what makes me really sad is that little Ashley in class may have two dads, and Billy, her friend, may have two moms, and they can't talk about their parents because
it's true.
Their parents are gay.
Yeah.
And
hang on, the kids aren't allowed to talk about it either.
Great. So the bill doesn't say. The bill says that the teachers can't. That so that they can't talk about it as part of their curriculum. I don't think it says anything about students, but like the precedent is still there, right? Like when sex ed comes up, like when they get to that age, like they're still not talking about other types of relationships, right? So,
sure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, it's. I can't imagine having to deal with that sort of thing here. I can't imagine what you're going through, Tim, and what folks in Florida are going through.
Yeah, absolutely, Tim. I want to thank you for bringing it up because it is super important. And thanks again too for sharing your experiences with that, because I can't imagine. I've said this before. I can't imagine what it's like to have your life. It seems like it would be a lot harder by any objective metric to have to deal with that. And I'm really glad that folks like you can talk to us on the air and share your experiences and just remind us like what we're fighting for, and also remind folks like me who are cis, who are straight, who don't have those experiences, who need to be reminded that yes, this is what I'm fighting for too, to make sure that everybody in this country has a right to love who they want to love. And that doesn't mean loving kids, all those, don't mix it up with the pedophile stuff. Come on. That's another thing too. There's another narrative that says this is encouraging pedophilia amongst people, which is just sad.
Also makes no sense.
Yeah, absolutely. But anyway, we should move on to some other callers, I think. But before we do that, I just want to give a quick announcement. We have some brand spanking new merch in our store. Look at the new Truth Wanted swag. We have expanded our place. We got a new website, which we are selling our merch at, but it's the same link as before. So it's tiny.cc/merch ACA, where you can check out all the Truth Wanted swag. Look at that stuff. New shirts and stuff. And I've already sent some new requests for some designs as well. So hopefully we'll be seeing that soon. But check out that merch if you haven't already. I think it's pretty dope. What do you think, MD? You going to get some new merch?
I hope to be wearing some next time I'm on.
I hope so too. That would be really cool. I haven't worn my own merch on the show in a long time. I don't know how I feel about it. It feels like I'm grinding too hard there a little bit.
No. It's on brand.
Is it on brand for my own show though? Like I'll wear it if I do interviews with people and stuff, so that they know where to go.
Well.
But here it's like you know where it's at. You know,
yeah.
You know what you're talking about. Okay, but let's move on. We have some other people who want to talk to us. We got Andrew, who's calling in from Maine. Andrew, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
Hi. Yeah, just kind of had a reaction to hearing the last call. I mean, you read what I said, but yeah, basically, I just think people might be reading too much into this bill, and like it's about sexuality in general. It doesn't, single out one or the other. So it seems kind of weird that people would have such a strange desire for young kids to be like, I didn't have sex ed until like 8th grade. I think that's probably a normal age for a lot of people.
Sure.
I don't know. I just feel like there's an overreaction. So I guess that's what I was saying.
Well, again, the bill doesn't say it's going to have sex ed for elementary school kids, right? What it's talking about is sexual orientation and different gender identities are going to be part of that curriculum at earlier ages. So why it's important is because it means that even if you have a comprehensive sex education plan at 8th grade, let's say you're in the 8th grade and you're in Florida and you're ready, you can't talk about gay people. Like that's what it's saying. You can't, it has to pretend like they don't exist as a peoples, and that's why that's a problem.
I don't know if that's actually what it says. I think it's just more of the age restriction. I don't think it's actually saying gay people don't exist. I'm pretty sure that's not what's in the bill.
Well, I have a question, Andrew. When do you start, say in Florida or wherever in Maine, what grade or what age do you start learning math?
Ooh. Interesting.
Learning math, you said?
Yeah.
I don't know, like very young, obviously, kindergarten or something. I mean,
right.
I don't agree. Okay.
So what is the difference between what's the difference between learning math, learning biology, learning geography or history, and learning sexual health or sex ed?
Because because math is a fairly objective thing, and as you said, there's a lot of baggage with sexuality. It's very much linked to people's emotions and their bodies, which aren't anywhere near developed in many cases, not all cases.
Right. So I'm not saying that we dive into I'm not saying that curriculum should dive into hardcore advanced sex ed stuff when children are in grade 1. But I mean, I think it's a travesty that sex ed is not even addressed until, grade 8, for example. Like some kids have been having their period for potentially a couple of years by the time they get to grade 8. Okay. And don't you think that maybe that sort of thing would be a lot less frightening if those children knew what was coming, and that's the sort of thing that would be handled in sex ed?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I guess this brings up another question of, I think in a lot of cases, things to do with sex can be very personal. So that is why people think that it should be at the first level handled by the family. And obviously not all families are good at that or whatever, but I mean, it's not, I don't really see it as especially a public school's duty to teach people about their own I don't know, because math is an objective, detached academic thing. Sex
Well,
is not.
There are objective facts about human reproduction and human sexuality as well.
Yeah, it's true.
Like, it's a scientific
right
fact
about
that there are heterosexual people, and it's a scientific fact that there are homosexual people, and it's a scientific fact that there are people in between.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a scientific fact that some people have penises and testes, and some people have vaginas and vulvas and ovaries. So I don't know. These are all scientific facts. So why can't we teach them?
Well, I'm not saying you can't teach them. I'm just saying it might be a little.
Why can't the public school teach them?
Yeah, the bill is saying you can't. Go ahead.
Why can't the public school teach them?
No. So let me get the quote here. It says it prohibits classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity. Right? And
unless it's age appropriate.
That is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with the state standards, right? So kindergarten through third grade is completely banned. Okay. Everything after that, it does. Here's the problem with the bill. It doesn't give a specific age as to when it's appropriate. It does not say this is now the age when it's appropriate. So any school system can use that and say none of the ages are appropriate and don't teach it at all. Like it's the workarounds with this bill that are really part of the problem.
And frankly, I mean, I don't see what's age inappropriate about acknowledging the fact that gay people exist.
Yeah, or sexual orientations exist.
Yes, exactly. Sexual orientations exist.
I mean, it's kind of a heavy thing, and I don't think younger kids have the.
Why is it a heavy thing?
I mean, I had sex ed when I was in 7th grade. You know, that was, and I learned all about what happens during sex. I mean, what the actual organs of sexual reproduction are for, right? Like, if anything, that's the appropriate time to know that other sexual orientations exist and other expressions of gender identity exist. Not to mention for the fact that obviously gay kids exist, but also trans kids exist too. And if they don't have, on top of it being not allowing, on top of it being like almost anti-speech in a way, saying that you can't teach these things, it's also symbolic because it's also like just not giving the acknowledgement that these communities are real and exist as well in the classroom, because we've been teaching straight sex since as long as sex ed has been a thing in schools, right? We've talked about the purpose of that, and obviously
but probably not even that well, right?
Yeah,
like
probably not even that well, but
like Andrew, what do you think is so? If I think back to when I went through sex ed, before we actually had sex ed, there were a lot of rumors and whisperings and vague ideas about what went on and what this big secret was that everyone was keeping from us. And it led to a lot of misinformation. So do you think that it's better? Like, do you think, Andrew, it would be better if we let the teachers deliver actual facts before the rumors snuck in? Or should we be focusing all of our sex ed in like 7th or 8th grade on just busting all these myths that people have built up over the previous years?
Mm-hmm.
Well,
because they're getting exposed to sex in some ways. And I don't understand why you would want it to happen like in the day-to-day life and the rumor mill and all that stuff, instead of in like a controlled environment and a relatively safe environment where they're going to get good information.
It's true.
Well, that's part of what I'm saying, is that I don't think it's a groundbreaking issue one way or the other, the specific age, as long as it's not super, super young. My main thing is it does leave the door open to, address orientation and things after 3rd grade. So, I mean, I just think...
No, it doesn't.
I guess you're right.
Yes, it does. That's the problem. It says up until age appropriate. They can make it so that they never teach it at all. There's no requirement for them to teach it.
Say that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was about to say that it can be abused, but I mean, technically the door is open. But I mean, again, like people are, you must not be worried about people knowing about it, because it's like it's the information age. I mean, people can access all sorts of information, no matter what, like you just said, about
Right.
anything you want. So
There's also millions of Americans that believe that the election was stolen, and they use their access sources of information to figure that out. You know, like, just because we have access doesn't mean we know how to specifically use those tools. And plus, we're talking about like kids here as well. We're not talking about grown adults with jobs. We're talking about people who are learning about this stuff for the first time, who need that basis to kind of figure this stuff out, right? And let's be real, teenagers have sex. Like, that's part of why sex ed was a thing, because teenagers are having sex, and if they're going to have sex, they need to have that better education and understanding of it, including sex that is not heteronormative or involves other, you know, people, places, and things.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I just, I mean, I'm not against sex ed. I just think, I guess if it were to be abused, that would be bad. But I'm just saying, I think the huge uproar is kind of, I just think it might be an overreaction. Like, I don't know if you just are anticipating everybody abusing this, like, throughout the entire state, or I don't know. It's, and again, like, the parent, like, people will be exposed to these ideas beforehand. It's not like they're going to be, you know, it's not like they're going to hear it for the first time in a classroom. So,
Andrew, why do you think that this legislation was needed in the first place?
Yeah.
Why do I think it was needed? I don't even know if I think it was 100% needed, but I'm just saying.
Right. So why does it, like, it seems like, again, I heard about this for the first time this evening, but like, I don't understand why you would need something like this unless you're planning to use it or planning to abuse it in the way that we've been talking about today. Yeah. Right. Sure. It's like,
well, I do think that, I guess now that you mention it, I do think you can, by kind of, going too hard on these ideas, you can kind of dampen or ruin someone's younger childhood years where they might not be able to enjoy just being a child as much. So I do think with the whole push to make people aware, it has been getting younger and younger. So I do see it as protecting children in some way, and there is value in that. So I guess,
why do you think that children are going to be harmed by having more information?
Well, I mean, it's just, I mean, especially if you haven't gone through puberty, it's just not super relevant. And it's just, you know, go play with your friends, go like do your sports. I mean,
but don't you think like it would be like, puberty is a very scary time for everyone, probably. Your body's going through changes. And if you don't understand why or what's happening, then that's even more scary.
Yeah.
Like, don't you think it would be perhaps less distressful if everyone in the class knew, oh, they're going through puberty. I get it. That's why they're, you know, acting differently or looking differently or whatever. Maybe that would garner a little bit more empathy in classmates instead of it, you know, people becoming targets of like bullying and abuse or something. Like, I just don't buy this idea that children are these like precious, delicate things, and you can't mention the word sex or anything related to sex or like even the hormones involved in our natural human bodies, and like the shyness that our society has around these discussions with children leads to some really bad things, right? Like, you can think of examples of like child abuse where children don't know what's happening and they don't know what's wrong when they've been sexually abused, and they don't know how to communicate what happened because no one's given them the jargon or like the words to explain what happened. I just don't buy that you're doing anyone any favors by not educating them.
Yeah.
I mean, even at the like second grade, I mean, I started shaving my mustache in 5th grade. So, I mean, you don't have to tell me about that. And people made fun. So I understand.
And I started having crushes on girls in like 2nd grade, and Tim was having crushes on boys in 1st grade. And when Tim was having crushes, he didn't know how to deal with that because he didn't live in a society that validated that, right? That didn't say that was okay. So I want to live in a society that does say that's okay. That says like, yes, you are okay in this. This is natural. This is normal, and you're fine. And I'd rather kids have that protection, you know?
Knowledge is power. And if you want to destroy fear, then you want to inform people about what is going to happen.
Yeah. I mean, again, I agree that people obviously should be made aware. I don't know. I mean, I guess abuse would be bad. I guess maybe I don't see all the schools in Florida abusing it. Maybe I'm wrong, but I mean, I just kind of, to me, it seems like kind of an overreaction. I don't know.
You got to look at, there's a lot of bad actors at play here that have been trying to make this bill happen for a long time. There is a entire lobby of people who have been supporting this bill, and they are not pro-trans. They are not pro-LGBT or T, like in any sense of the word. Like you should be suspect to see why. It's the same stuff with creationism in schools. There's lots of groups that, and this is the exact same problem. Yeah, even though like you can teach evolution right now in public schools, how many public schools don't do it? How many public schools are still like not following the current science and even throwing ideas out? Like there's lawsuits happening about that stuff all the time. So it's going to happen with this too. 100%. Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, I guess the bigger issue is just in general trying to control what people think. I mean, you can't control what people think. All you can do is expose them to ideas and let them make their own conclusions. Right. So, I mean, I guess I see that a lot with this whole debate. And, you know, for me, I see it more on the left side of politics, but it's just like, I hate the efforts to control what people think. It's just like, expose them to the ideas and let them make their own conclusions. And as long as they don't break any laws or anything, I mean,
we understand like, this bill is controlling what people can say in schools, right? It's saying that they can't teach it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I get that, which is why I said I'm not 100% one side or the other. I think there's points on both sides. I don't know, but to me, it's just like people are like, oh, it's the end of the world. It's like, no, like you can get this information in many other places. It's not like you're going to have a blank mind about this.
And again, I have to say, I don't know if every second grader that is experiencing feelings like that can and does that, or any elementary schooler for that matter, or any other kid. Like I get that there are ways you can do it, but that access is, I mean, it should come from your school first. I should learn my knowledge from school before I have to look it up from the internet. Like, I just think as a general policy, that's a good idea. But anyway, Andrew, I'm sorry. We gotta move on because we gotta get to some of the callers here. But I do appreciate you calling in with your opinion and your thoughts on stuff. Thanks so much for contributing to the show. And I hope you have a good night. Any other thoughts on that, MD?
No, I mean, I just don't. I think that this is one of the unquestioned assumptions of our society. Is that there are things that children must be shielded from, knowledge that should be forbidden to children for whatever reason. And I think we frankly don't give kids enough credit, and that they can psychologically handle a lot more than people think. Absolutely. Being scarred or harmed or whatever.
I as someone who has spent time in his career working with children, kids, first of all, kids are savages. All right. They know way more than you think and way more than you'd want them to know, but they know not all the time, of course. And for the ones that don't know, we have to give them the tools to figure that stuff out. And again, it's like, I don't want my kids to have to figure this out because, oh, the internet says they're okay, but not their school. Like what?
Yeah. You know? And I mean, like, I'll tell you a story real quick.
Yeah.
I've done rotations at the pediatric hospital, the local pediatric hospital. So I've had to do operations on children. And the rule for consent, for getting consent for a procedure, is if the child can reasonably make the decision, you assess their capacity to make the decision. Yeah. And it doesn't matter what their numerical age is. You do it based on their ability to understand the decision. So I've had conversations with like 8 or 10-year-olds where I say, look, you have an infection in your appendix and it's making you sick. But what we usually do is we do an operation where we put a little cut in you and we take out the appendix. And these kids go, yeah, that makes sense. I think we should do that. And you're like, this is more of a mature conversation than I've had with some adults, right? It's like, and the kids totally understand. And yet we're saying, you know, they can consent to having this operation, but they can't like learn about their body below the waist sort of thing. Like this is I just find it very strange.
Yeah. There is America we love violence and we have a weird relationship with sex. It's like when it comes to learning about it, there's just weird taboos around it. But when it comes to putting it in movies and all kinds of stuff, we're totally okay with it. It's very strange. There's a lot of Puritan cultural values.
Similar.
But yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of Puritan cultural values that affect that thinking. But hey, we've been talking a lot, and we need to show our latest promo of the show. So check this out.
Good government and good legislation for y'all.
Here's hoping.
Yeah, and then this sex show can get back to hopping on the good foot and doing the bad thing. Like, we would like to not be talking about politics on it's really getting in the way of our conversation.
You know, we're just a fact of the universe, and some people that makes them uncomfortable. For the rest of us, we've learned to live with it and figure out what to do next. And sometimes that includes going on call-in shows. But other times it means loving your family and doing things that make you happy and just being a human.
They need to appeal to people in these toxic churches and bring them in and show them that there's a kinder, gentler way to be a Christian.
I gotta say, Kelly, I might go back to church if there were pool tables or air hockey, but
if we're just going to use a methodology of common sense and not give a shit about what we believe in the world, then my common sense is just better than yours. Why? Because it's common sense. Do I need to actually provide independent justification? No, because I'll just side with my common sense because I'm irresponsible and don't care about knowing the truth.
If your view is, I have no good reason to believe this, I can't demonstrate to anybody, I just believe, cool, go get yourself a friend. I'm not your friend. I can be friendly and I can be a prick.
And we're back. Hopefully, those of you watching on YouTube can enjoy those promos if you get to see them. You got to catch it live if you want to see them live. And you got to watch the show on YouTube if you want to see the shows we don't put it out in the audio form. So check it out on YouTube to see our funny promos. I love our promos. They are great. And with that out of the way, we have another caller who wants to talk to us. MD, I'm worried about this call, but we're going to take it. We're talking to John. Excuse me. John is calling in from Canada. John, you're live on Truth Wanted. What's up?
I heard I heard all the audio calls about the gay. They don't say gay bill in Florida, and I'd like to say that I am in favor of it. It should be totally enforced. It's a good thing. Because
well, John, considering your opinions when you've called into the show before, I'm not surprised. But why do you would you be in favor of this?
Yeah, why do you think that?
Because children should not be taught about sexuality. Children should be taught about arithmetic, English. Because that's all they need to know. Children are not ready for this.
Why?
Children and sex have nothing to do with each other. This
school
is
and
child
sex.
abuse. There's no difference.
Did you say school and sex have nothing to do with each other? Is that correct?
I'm saying that children and sex have nothing to do with each other. Nothing.
Did you not have sex ed in your school?
This is not okay. Fine. You want to talk about me? Fine. I'm going to tell you a story. When I was 11 years old, I wrote a sexually explicit sentence on in front of class. I was teased to death. I was in tears. If that happened to me, it can happen to children, and that's nothing. This is indoctrination. Why are you so
John?
That children?
Whoa, are you, John? Are you saying that you got sex ed as a child and subsequently, and that caused you to write a explicit sentence in front of the class, and then you were made fun of because of the sex ed?
Whether or not I learned sex ed is not important. What is important?
I think isn't that the point you're making? Okay, John. When do you think we should teach people about sex? How old do they have to be?
At least 16.
Okay.
Why?
Interesting.
Because that's when the mind starts getting ready for it.
No,
but I know people. I have a good friend who had. I have a good friend who had a child at the age of 15.
Does not make the rule. The exception does not make the rule.
John, what do you think the average age is of when a period starts?
All right, can I ask you, gentlemen, a question?
No, you have to answer my question first. What is the average age of a period? Do you know? It's younger than 16. I'll tell you that.
What are you talking about?
Talking about when a menstruation cycle occurs. What is the average age?
Menarche is the term. When is what's the average age of a woman's first period, or a person with a uterus?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
MD, I believe
could be 12 or younger.
Yeah,
potentially. It's been getting younger over time.
Yeah, and as soon as you can have a period, you're capable of, well, not in all circumstances, but most circumstances, you are capable of reproducing.
Correct.
At that point.
Okay, so all right, gentlemen. So that means we might as well go into the schools and give these children, 6-year-olds, condoms. After all, if they're capable of reproducing, we should let them do it. In fact,
no, because we said the age was 12. But yeah, like
okay, if you're so sure that children are should be taught about sex, why don't you just take them to a porn show? Or better yet,
John,
why don't you show them
what's going to be better for what is going to be better for their well-being, John?
John, when
we give them a comprehensive sex education, right?
John, when you're learning to ride a bike, do you just like go from walking and then you get on a bike and you start riding? Or do you start with a tricycle and then you figure out how to do that, and then you get a bike but you have training wheels on it? That has to do with what it has to do with it, John, is that everything we do in education, everything is stepwise, right? You don't go from 0 to 100, you start slow. And what at least I'm advocating for is I don't see a reason why we don't start teaching sex ed, things that are factual about basic anatomy at a younger age than we do now.
Yeah.
Because there's no downside to it. They especially for children who are like 6 years old, they don't have a concept of sex, right? That's precisely So why don't we teach an aspect of sex education where we're just talking about anatomy, for example, so that they know if their local priest touches them, that they touch them on the penis instead of the wee-wee. Don't you think that would potentially be more useful and more helpful?
Okay. Even if I were to grant that, which I don't, why do you insist that children have to know about homosexuality or transsexual? That kids have?
I believe you mean transgender people.
Because it's part of a comprehensive sex education curriculum, and leaving it out is intentionally ignoring a component of the realities of sex ed.
Yes, and also, John, gay kids exist and trans kids exist, and they are in every school in America has one or the other or both. And we have to acknowledge that reality and give them the access to the same tools and the same benefits that we as cis straight people have had with our comprehensive sex education, with their sex education, right? We shouldn't limit them just because that they're different from us. They should be able to have access to that knowledge too.
And remember, children feel like romantic attraction that's non-sexual, right?
Yeah.
Like people like children before puberty, they will feel attraction and like the sort of like preliminary feelings, and those will align with their sexual orientation. So like Tim was saying, even before puberty and before sort of like the before fully realizing what homosexuality means, he would have, I think he was describing having these feelings of attraction towards other men.
Yeah.
And I think it's important for children to know that that sort of thing is okay and part of, not abnormal and not something to be ashamed of and all this, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you think, John?
Your favorite? Well, I think that all this is indoctrination. You're promoting homosexuality. You're teaching children
it's not promoting homosexualdy any more than it's promoting heterosexuality. It's acknowledging the existence of
it's promoting the awareness of homosexuality.
Sure. Yeah.
Women don't need
Do you agree with that?
Don't need to be aware of homosexuality.
Why? Why not?
Do they have to be aware of? Hang on. Do they have to be aware of heterosexuality?
You don't have to be aware of any sexuality whatsoever. That's my point. None.
Well, they have parents though.
Yeah.
Okay, then let the parents take care of it. That's their responsibility, not the schools.
Why? No. Why? Okay. If we're offloading the education about things onto the parents, why don't we get the parents to teach, math or science or geography or English? Oh yeah, because parents are not experts in education and they're not content experts either.
Yep.
So why wouldn't you have a person who's an expert in the content and an expert in pedagogy deliver the lesson?
Okay, so I see that. Answer this question: Are you in favor of getting rid of parents altogether and have the state raise your children?
Why do you always?
Well, hang on. No. I'm fine with it. I'm fine with this. I'm not afraid. What's your question, John?
Are you in favor of parents being removed from the equation altogether and have the state raise your children? And when I say your children, I don't mean general. I mean your children specifically. You, Dan, and you, MD, aware. Do you want that?
Kids,
Do you want you guys to be removed as parents and have the state raise your children? Is that what you want?
No.
I think that there are benefits to having some education be centralized, and there's also benefits to having a home life.
Yeah, and just to clarify too, this bill isn't saying parents can't talk to kids about sex. They can't. They couldn't enforce that even if they wanted to. It's giving the state the power to talk about it in the classroom. That's the difference, or removing that power. Actually,
removing
what
the
bill
power.
is doing. Yeah.
All the bills are saying that parents have a right to know what their children are being taught, which makes complete sense. You don't.
No, that's not because you could, if that were the case, then the bill would say, okay, here's what we're going to teach. FYI, you don't have a say in it, parents. This is what we're teaching because as a society, we've decided that this is what's important for children to know. Just like we've decided, for instance, that calculus is apparently relevant for people to know.
Mm.
I just don't see this distinction between any other subject and sex ed. I don't know why the exception is being made for sex ed.
Because it's something personal. It's between parents and children.
Why is it between parents and children? It's not between parents and children.
Is that's the way I was taught. Jesus Christ! Why
so the way you were taught is the only correct way to do it.
Yeah, and I'm fine.
Okay.
Hey, listen.
That's not the way I was taught, and I'm also fine.
Yeah, and
so there's clearly more than one way.
My parents never gave me the talk at all. Period. And they're actually qualified to do it. They both work in the healthcare profession. They're more qualified than a lot of people. And I just had the school do it, and that was fine. That was great. That's all I needed. Why?
The difference is, John, when you're in school, you're learning with a group of peers who also are ignorant at the same time. And it normalizes the question asking that goes on, right? It normalizes the ignorance. And I think that notoriously people dread the talk with their parents because it's awkward having that kind of conversation with your parents sometimes. Yep. Some people don't have that kind of relationship with their parents. Whereas in the school setting, they have a relationship with the teacher of an educator and a student, right? A teacher and a student.
Yeah.
And so that establishment and those roles are already there. So why wouldn't you want to use those roles, especially if we're not talking about values, right? Like I don't think that anyone is saying, and anyone in these discussions are saying, we need to stop them from telling the children that being gay is better than being straight.
Yeah.
No one is saying that, right?
Yeah.
All that the curriculum should be doing, and all that the curriculum would be doing, is talking about the fact that these people exist. So what's wrong with a teacher communicating facts?
First of all, if you have a teacher or a student, an adult and a child talking about these things alone, it's going to lead to pedophilia, which is precisely what
they're not taught. That's my whole point. They're not doing it alone. It's in a classroom setting with like 25 other children. And why would it lead to
But what-
pedophilia also?
Because if we get rid of the
So
difference,
you think that any adult put in a situation with a child in a room privately where they're talking about sex inevitably leads to pedophilia?
yes, it does. And only an idiot thinks
That is factually incorrect. That is factually incorrect. Cite your source.
John.
All right, gentlemen. All right, gentlemen. If you really think a child should know about sex, then should they know about war? Does that mean we should send children off to the military to fight a war? Is that what you want?
We should teach them about the fact that wars exist, and we do.
Then send them to war. I see no difference. You might as well send them to war.
Really? You don't see a difference?
Yeah.
Because I would think that the analogy, in your analogy, would be, okay, if we're going to send kids to war to teach them about war as children, then we're going to make sure the kids go and have sex to teach them about sex. That's specifically not what we're doing.
Yeah.
Right? We're teaching them in a safe environment about war. We're saying this is what happened in the past with war, and this is what people do with sex in a classroom setting with books and anatomy and facts.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not going to end there. Have you read the book 1984? MD Aware. You studied.
Yes.
Have you read the book 1984?
John, have you read 1984? That's what I want to know.
Yes, I have.
Yes, I've read 1984.
What's the name
Why?
of the main character in 1984?
Winston Smith.
Oh, okay, good. Well, it's not. Is it Smith? Is it Smith?
Yeah,
I knew it was
his name is
Winston.
Winston Smith. That's his name.
Okay, well, you get that part.
Yeah.
All right, I was just
Go on. What's your point?
My point is that in that book, George Orwell predicted what's happening now. He's predicted a world where the history is being erased, individual freedom is being denied.
Oh, we're going.
What does this have to do with sex ed?
John, I'm gonna be real with you. You have to give me a reason to keep talking to you, or else I'm gonna end the call because I feel like we're kind of done with this conversation.
Well, I'm done with you too, fools.
Okay, John. All right. Well, that was interesting. I guess we're fools because we are inevitably going to send children to war because we want to teach them about sex ed.
About anatomy.
Yeah, or anatomy. I mean, I don't know where that was going at the end. He got the. You know what? I was surprised that he got the character right. Props to you, John. I think that's the truest thing you've said all call, because I don't think anything else you said was in the realm of reality. I don't think teaching children about anatomy inevitably leads to pedophilia. I don't think it inevitably leads to war. I think was his point. I don't know. It got to weird places.
No, it's if we teach kids about about sex
Then-
ed, then
oh,
we
then we
also
might as well
have to send them to war.
Right. I don't think that makes sense, though.
Shocker.
I kind of thought about it, and I used my 2 brain cells left after that conversation, and I don't think that makes sense. But hey, it is what it is. We have some open lines. I would love to talk to at least one more person before we kind of end tonight's show, but we'll see if we can or can't. Real quickly, though, while we have the open lines and we want to talk to you guys, I want to point out the fact that you can join the discussion not only on Facebook, but also after the show. We got the ACD Discord server that MD and I are going to go to. We can answer all of your questions on there. So check out that link. It's tiny.cc/ACD Discord. And as I alluded to, you can also talk to us on Facebook and talk to other people who listen to the show on Facebook. It's the tiny.cc/FBTWG link there in the description for the Truth Wanted fan group. So check that out if you haven't already. So we have at least one other caller that we can get to. What do you think? You ready for this one, MD?
Let's do it.
Okay, we're bringing back a classic here, a modern classic. It's biblically calling in.
I just realized.
Biblically is calling in. Biblically, what's up?
Biblically, our Dada God is what's up, because he is ultimate, entailing him to be everlasting, immaterial, all-powerful, all-knowing, and so forth. So I was here to discuss Genesis 1:1.
Okay, what's Genesis 1:1? Read it out.
In the beginning.
Yes, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So, to substantiate.
What are the heavens, by the way? What do you believe the heavens are when they're talking about that? People have different ideas.
Well, let's set a foundation first so we can move forward in this discussion by repeating the following phrase: our God of the Bible is perfect.
I'm not going to repeat anything.
Yeah. I think asking definitions is pretty foundational. I'm interested in what you think about the heavens question. What do you think they mean by that?
Well, you're presupposing the Bible when you're asking me questions about the Bible, because in the beginning, God references.
Sure. Well, we're presupposing the existence of the Bible. Yes.
Yeah.
Sure.
The Bible exists.
I mean, I don't know if we're presupposing because I've seen and read them, so I have evidence for it. But yes, I accept the existence of the Bible.
Mm-hmm.
Biblically, if you're wanting to discuss the Bible, you have to presuppose Genesis 1:1. So in the beginning, God. So
if I want to discuss something, does that mean if I want to discuss Harry Potter, does that mean I have to presuppose the truth of the Harry Potter
the existence of Hogwarts?
Content?
Yeah, like.
Or can I talk about a thing without acknowledging that it exists?
Biblically, finite in size particulars do exist. Our God of the Bible is in a different category because he is everywhere by default. So if you want to discuss
that's what it says in the Bible.
I feel like you didn't answer his question.
I did answer your question. So biblically,
can you answer in a way that it's more understandable? Because I don't know what your answer has to do with this question.
Biblically,
so okay, all right.
Addressed your question.
Okay, biblically, I can you just give me a yes or no answer to the question? And it's not a trick question. In your opinion, can I discuss the content of, say, a book without acknowledging that what the book says is factually true in reality?
Biblically, again, I would appreciate it if I could respond without being interrupted, is that if you're talking about the Bible, you are presupposing divine revelation. So
what if I'm talking about the Quran?
Biblically, the Bible precedes the Quran. So if you wanted...
Hey, what if I'm talking about the Torah?
Again, in Proverbs... So allow me to again, the Torah is the Old Testament. So in the beginning, God. So if you want to discuss the Bible, you are presupposing our God's divine revelation. So divine revelation.
Can you explain that to me? I don't understand that. Can you explain that part to me? Like, don't just tell me that I'm presupposing. Explain why I'm presupposing it.
Yes. Yes, that's what I was doing. So,
okay, go ahead.
So divine revelation entails both general revelation and special revelation. So in other words, it appeals to our ontologies and epistemologies. In other words, we have to appeal to our God of the Bible, as in Genesis.
Okay, biblically, I'm sorry. You're going to have to dumb it down for me. I'm just a humble physician.
That's what I'm doing.
No, you bring it down. Even more basic.
Explained like I'm 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Genesis 1:1, in the beginning, God. So if you want to discuss the Bible, you are presupposing our God of the Bible, as you are appealing to both Scripture and the revelation of God. So this is what
but here's MD's point, right? Let's say I have a book, and let's say the first part of that book said that their God created everything, right? Let's say that that's the contents of that book and that's its claim. Do I therefore have to presuppose that that book and its claims are true before I can discuss the contents of that book?
Biblically, only the Bible comports with the ultimacy of our Heavenly Father of the Bible.
Why does the Bible get special treatment?
Father. Biblically, because in Genesis 1:1 it states, "In the beginning,
But that's
God."
hang on. So you're appealing to the book to justify the book.
Again, I'm appealing to divine revelation, so I have to.
But the divine revelation is described in the book.
Biblically, divine revelation is both special revelation, which is the Bible, and general revelation, which is the knowledge of God. So divine revelation
I don't have that.
Comports with both.
But I don't have this general revelation.
You do.
Where's that?
You have to appeal. Biblically, there are no such thing as atheists because you have to appeal to the revelation of God.
No, go back to Genesis 1:1.
Yeah.
Why does the Bible get special treatment?
Biblically, because in the beginning, God comports with the first sentence of the Bible. So you have to presuppose our God's divine revelation before.
So what if I had a book that said, "In the beginning, the flying spaghetti monster created the heavens and the earth"? Would I be presupposing the existence of the flying spaghetti monster?
Biblically, a monster is a label for a creature.
And God is a label for I don't know what. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter.
Biblically,
if I had a book that said, "In the beginning, the non-Christian God created the heavens and the earth."
Biblically, as I've stated earlier, is that only the Bible comports with the ultimacy of our God, because in the beginning, God.
Okay, all right, so that's assuming that God exists.
Yeah.
And I don't buy that assumption.
Biblically, you are presupposing our God as the word exists as a verb. A verb is a doing word. So as I stated earlier, you have to appeal to the revelation of God before commenting about him. And this comports with Genesis 1:1 in the Bible. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. So, and because
and in the end, Dan hits the call end button. So that's that story.
I tried, man. I really tried.
I know you tried.
I really tried.
I know you tried. There's something that he said that made me upset because I've heard other people say it, which is this idea that you know that God exists. Like everyone knows that God exists. Everybody in America understands a Christian. Like most people in America understand the Christian God. So I think that's why that comes up, right? Because I'm assuming he may not be in the U.S. Okay, everyone in the Western world, you probably grew up with an idea of what the Western God was. But what about the thousands of history of people in places like China, or they had absolutely zero conception of Judaism, zero conception of Christianity for the vast majority of people for the longest time. Pick any indigenous group on Earth, right?
Yeah, or pre-Christianity. I just bought a book that's a summary of Greek mythology.
Yeah.
Right? It's they didn't have an idea of what the Judeo-Christian God was. Their gods were very, very human.
Yeah, exactly. So presuppositionalism, that's what it is in a nutshell. It's just a never-ending loop of saying the same thing over and over again. Well, the book in the first sentence says that God is in the beginning, and therefore we have to use this as proof of something. I don't even know what the point was, but we didn't get anywhere with this conversation. Same time last time that we talked to him. I doubt if he calls again, we would get anywhere then either. But
I'd like
What
to
do
try
I
to
know?
talk to him about something else and see
I
where
would
we
too.
can get, but
I would too. Let's see how much we're right at the cusp at the end of the show. My goodness. Okay, so anybody that's still in the line, come talk to us during the ACD after show. We would love to talk to you there. That's where we're going to go right after this. So please do that if you haven't planned on it. Come join us. We'll answer your questions there. We just need to wrap up tonight's show. I want to tell you about some other ways you can help support the show. One of them is by clicking the join button down below. If you're watching this on YouTube, to become a member. If you do that, then you get some cool emojis. We recently updated our emojis. They're kind of cool. It lets other people know that, hey, you are a subscriber of the show and you help out. And that's why you're really awesome. So please consider doing that if you haven't already. And you can also, if you're watching this on YouTube, hit the donate button. The donate button is there. That goes directly to the ACA because we are a 501c3 nonprofit. So YouTube doesn't get that. So if you want to support and make a tax, what do you call it? Tax deductible. I almost said tax refundable, but that's not true. It's tax deductible donation. Then definitely do that. I consider doing that. I'm Objectively Dan. You can follow me on Twitter at ObjectivelyDan. The email for the show is truth@atheist-community.org. MD Aware. This is normally the part where I'd say, where can people find you at? But they can find you right here, baby.
Yeah.
Right here on this show.
Yeah.
And
I also have a Twitter account that I rarely interact with, but it's EMDEE Aware.
It took me a minute to find your Twitter account first time because you're like, oh yeah, it's MD Aware, and I was like, okay, it's not coming up, but no, you got like a little spelling thing going on.
Yeah.
So.
It's suboptimal, but it's what I got. If you tweet at me, I'll respond. So
there you go.
Hit me up.
There you go. And before we go over to the ACD and do all that stuff, we have to thank the wonderful, fantastic, amazing, stupendous crew that helps make this show happen every single week. They are working behind the scenes. Groaning sometimes as much as we are sometimes on this show, but hey, they're there, they're sticking it out. And there's a lot of cats today, a lot of cats going on as well. They help make the show. As you know, cats are just as important in podcasting. They really are. They do a lot of work. But anyway, again, I'm Objectively Dan. MD Aware, do you have any words of wisdom? Words of wisdom before we close out tonight's show?
I think I'll leave you with what it says on my desktop background, which is a quote from Tennyson. It's the end of Ulysses, and that is to strive, to seek, to find, and not to yield. And those are the words that I've been living by past couple of years, especially when I've been doing a lot of my scientific work. But I think that really encapsulates what we do on the show. We strive, we seek, we find, and we try not to give up while we're doing it.
I like that quote. That's better than mine. The only thing that came to mind was that Fetty Wap song when he said, I got a Glock in my Rari. So I think yours is way deeper and much better for the show. So anyway.
Man, you always make me look like a tool.
You're not a tool. What? I just quoted rap lyrics. What does that make me?
You ask me for words of wisdom and I give you something and then you...
I might
be facetious
underneath you. Come on, come on. No, I am. If anything, I am highlighting your intellectual prowess, sir. Come on.
No, I don't want that.
It's a compliment. Anyway, folks, we need to wrap this up. This has been another episode of Truth Wanted. Remember to always keep wanting the truth, and we'll see you next time.
I think Puck wants us to talk over the outro.
He did it on accident last week, but he did it on purpose. He wants this to be a thing.
Yeah, I know. He's going to be really mad if we don't talk.
It's true.
So you better find something to talk about.
We even in the seconds of this program. Seen any good sports games lately?
I hate sports ball. Don't even come at me with that.
I don't know why I even bother with that, because I wouldn't give anything intelligent to say either.
Watch The Non-Prophets and join the hosts in the live chat Sundays at 3 p.m. Central between The Atheist Experience and Talk Hidden. Visit tiny.cc/YTNP.